زۆر باشە تۆ چانست هەیە بە عەرەبیەکی خۆش قسە ئەکەی و پێشتریش ئەزمموی کارکردنت لە ڕۆژهەڵاتی ناوەڕاست زۆرە و چەند ئاسانە بۆت لەگەڵ کللتور هەروەها لەگەڵ خەڵکی عێراق و کوردستان زوو تێکەڵبی بە تایبەت لەو ڕێگەیە کە عێراقیەکان سیاسەتی لەسەرەکەن.
It's always easier when you speak the language, so I'm sorry I don't speak Kurdish, and that's something that I want to learn in future, but I've always found it useful not just to understand the country, but to be able to communicate directly. So I always recommend to young diplomats, it's worth learning a language and spending time then using that language in their careers.
دیدگای حکوومەتی بریتانیا بۆ پێگەی هەرێمی کوردستان ئێستا چییە؟
Well, we had a visit recently by the President of the Republic, Dr. Barham Saleh, to London, an official visit where he saw Boris Johnson, who had not been elected as Prime Minister but was standing for election as Prime Minister. And it was clear then that Boris Johnson has a very good idea of the opportunities in Iraq as a whole, but specifically Kurdistan region, which he's visited before. So we want to make the most of that, but of course we have security issues to think about, and Daesh is still there. We can't stop the campaign against Daesh. But we also want to get the economy going. And the local opinion polls all show that jobs and services are what people want across Iraq, and we want the British private sector to be here helping to get the economy going. So I think both on security grounds and for business, this is seen as a time of hope, and where there are some positives, and we want to make that happen in the next year.
قسەیەکی باشت هەیە بۆ خوێندکارە کوردەکان بە تایبەتی لەو پرۆگرامێک کە چێفنینی ناوە بریتانیا دەیدا بە خوێندکاری کورد.
Well, this week we are going to congratulate nearly a dozen top Kurdish students who are going to do master's studies in the UK. This is half of all the students we're sending on the Chevening programme. I'll say congratulations to them all now if they're watching or their families and friends are watching. This is really important because it's our flagship programme, but more generally we want to build a greater education relationship between Iraq, including Kurdistan region. The British Council is here and very active, in fact active in all the provinces. And so on the back of this group of Chevening scholars, we want that human bridge between the two countries to help, in the interests of both countries, get the business relationship, the cultural relationship and the educational relationship to a new level.
ڕێز ویلکس ئێوە جەزانن کە 3 ساڵێکە بەڵای شەڕی داعش لە باشووری کوردستان و لە عێراقیش تا ئەندازەیەکی زۆر دوورکەوتوەتەوە هێشتا لە ڕووی ئابووریشەوە هەندێک کەم و کوڕێ هەیە. چۆن دەڕواننە ئەم 4 ساڵی داهاتوو کە لە هەرێمی کوردستان حکوومەتێکی تازە هەیە ئیشەکات؟
Well, I discussed this with the Prime Minister here in Erbil yesterday. Clearly there's more hope now than there has been for about 6 or 7 years. We had Daesh, then we had all the politics around the referendum, and the relationship with Baghdad now is moving in the right direction. That's important, to get a deal on sharing the oil revenues. I think in general as well we have to manage a difficult regional situation, but I think it is manageable. I don't think any side wants a conflict in the region, and the UK is doing all it can diplomatically to diffuse the situation. So if we can avoid Kurdistan region and Iraq getting dragged into a regional conflict, I think we can make real economic progress. And what I agreed with the Prime Minister is that we will try and partner Kurdistan region to make sure that on jobs and services, the Kurdish people, every citizen, can feel that this government is delivering some positive results within the next 6 months. So that's an ambitious target, but we have set the groundwork. We had a very good conversation about all the issues yesterday, and now we're going to work hard to help deliver that.
زۆر باش هەندێشتی باشی ڕوت ئێستا یەک قسەیان لەسەرەکەم بەڵام دیسان لەسەر داعش زیاتر ئەمەوێ بزانم. گوشارێکی زۆری جیهان هەبوو، هێزی گەورەی جیهان لە داعشیدا هەر ماوە تەواو نەبووە. ئەم دژمنەی جیهان چۆن دەتوانێت لێ نەجات بێ؟ ئایا هەر ئاوا بەردەوام دەمێنێ هەڕەشا بێ لەسەر خەڵکی ئەم ناوچەیە؟
Yes, this is important that everybody recognises that they're still there. They're growing to a certain extent. They're not controlling territory on any great scale, but nevertheless they pose a local threat in certain rural areas. So we have to continue this campaign. The coalition, of which the UK is a major contributor, we have committed to supporting Iraq and the Kurdistan region, the Peshmerga and the Iraqi security forces. but we must all coordinate better. So we are encouraging both sides, Erbil and Baghdad, to activate the joint security mechanisms. We've got to address issues of economic and service delivery in these areas, and we have to address the disputed areas, because that is largely where Daesh is spreading now. The UN is leading an effort in Kirkuk and in Sinjar, and of course we know that this dialogue between Baghdad and Erbil will return to the fundamental issue in the constitution of Article 140. So we will do all we can to create a positive atmosphere for the resolution of these difficult issues.
باشە وتت تازگی مسرور بارزانی سەرۆکوەزیرانت بینیوە بۆ کاروباری ویزا ئاسانکاری لە پێدانی ویزا هیچ قسەیەکی کۆنکرێتی ڕێکەوتنێکی واکراوە؟
So we talked about the visa issue. We are encouraging all Iraqi applications to provide full documentation and to use a new 5-star service to help make sure that all the information required is present. Because some people fail to get a visa because they don't give all the information or all the documentation. It's also important that people make clear their income and that they can afford to pay for themselves for the time they're in the UK. So it's much easier when people have a bank account. Now, a lot of people don't have bank accounts in Iraq, but those who travel should make sure that it is easy to produce an auditable income account. And I think this is a part of a wider issue which we talked about as well, that to get the economy going here, to make sure there are job opportunities, that people don't leave Kurdistan region and don't leave Iraq, which creates the problem in the first place. This is why visas can sometimes be difficult. Once Iraq is less of a risk for immigration purposes, then it's going to be easier for people to travel, study and invest in both directions. Now, to do that, we've got to get the private sector going, we've got to create jobs, we've got to create small businesses, and for that you need a banking sector that is trusted. One of the reasons why people don't have bank accounts is they don't trust the banking sector, or there is no strong presence of banks, international or local. So that's the fundamental reform that we're going to try and work with the Central Bank of Iraq, but also here in Kurdistan region, to have an effective banking sector that people trust. It'll be good for the economy, but it'll also be good when people apply for visas.
زۆر باشە. هەزاران کوردی باشووری کوردستان و لەوانەیە بەشەکانی تریش لە بریتانیا نیشتەجێن ئەمانە وەختێ داوای مافی پەنابەریان کردووە لەژێر حکومی سەدامیان دواتر ناچار بوون ژمارەیەک بە هەڵە بدەن، ئایا لەدایکبوونیانە ئایا هەر جۆرە ناوە. ئێستا ئەمە بۆ تازەکردنەوەی پاسپۆرت یان بردننی مناڵەکانیان لە کوردستانەوە مشکلەیەکی گەورەیە. چۆن دەتوانن چارەسەری ئەم خەڵکە بکەن کە مەجبور بوون وا بکەن؟
I can't talk about individual cases, but in general this is a big issue. We have Iraqis, Kurds, but others from Iraq who are attempting to get into the UK in an illegal way, or they're not following due procedures. And this is a fundamental problem. We know that many people are economic migrants. They're not claiming political asylum. They just want a future for themselves and for their families. And that's one of the reasons why we need to get the economy in the right place here, because we want a future for talented young Kurds in Kurdistan region, and we want that for the whole of Iraq. When we give the scholarships to top students in Kurdistan to go and study for master's degrees, we also want them to come back and lead the development and reconstruction of the country.
بەڵام ئەوانەی من دەڵێم هاوڵاتی بریتانین، یعنی مافی ڕەگەزنامەی هاوڵاتی نامەی بریتانیان هەیە، بەڵام غەڵەتێک لە دایکبوونیان هی مناڵیان هەبووە مەجبور بوون بۆ خۆیان دەڵێن چی دەکەن بۆ ئەوەی کێشەی ئەمانە چارەسەر ببێت. پاسپۆرتیان دەیانەوێت تازەکەنەوە نایدەنەوە.
Well, of course, yes, you're right. For British citizens, then we offer consular services to make sure that their passports and documentation are kept up to date. We have a consular team in Baghdad, but they cover the whole of Iraq, and they visit Erbil. In general, also, we're encouraging those people who hold British passports but have links to Kurdistan region to be part of the development of this economic partnership as well. So we do offer consular services, but we also want them to visit regularly and to be part of the developing economic and business partnership.
يعني ئەوانەی کە موالیدیان هەڵە داوە چی دەتوان بکەن بۆی مناڵەکانیان لە کوردستانەوە ببەن بۆ بەریتانیا کە ئێستا ڕێیان پێ نادەن؟
Obviously, we have to, for migration purposes or for passport application purposes, people have to be accurate in their information. People who try to game our system, who try to get round our system, of course we don't welcome this. But a British passport holder who plays by the rules, of course we are there to offer services to them inside Iraq. As I said, we don't have a presence permanently in Erbil. We visit and cover it from Baghdad, but you can access a lot of these services online, whether that's visas or passports.
باشە ئێوە لەگەڵ ئەڵمانیەکان لەگەڵ ئەمریکا یارمەتی دەدەن بۆ چاکسازی لە ناو هێزی پێشمەرگەدا ڕێکخستنەوەیان هەتا ئێستا بەکردنی چیتان کردووە بۆ ئەوە؟
The last year, of course, progress was slow because of the elections and the government formation. But the formation of the new government and the initial policy positions and program are very encouraging. We've sat with all the Peshmerga leaders and the new Minister for Peshmerga Affairs. There is a commitment to reform, but an understanding how difficult this is. This goes to the heart of developing the institutions of Kurdistan region, both political and military. There are many concerns on all sides that this is done in a way that builds the unity of Kurdistan region and doesn't cause conflict or doesn't cause tension. We realize this and we respect that those who have to lead this process have to manage a complex political file, but we will be there to offer technical support. And also recently we signed a defense cooperation memorandum of understanding for the whole of Iraq, including Kurdistan region. The federal defense minister was in London, and that will include training for officers and NCOs of the Iraqi security forces, but also the Peshmerga. And we want that to contribute to the wider reform effort, which is to build forces that are more effective, cost less, and are able to fulfill the functions of protecting the territory and the people.
زۆر باشە. لە نێوان شەڕی ئەمریکا و ئێراندا هەم بەغدا و هەم هەولێریش بە جۆرێ لە جۆرەکان گیران خواردووان ئەزانن چۆن مامەڵە بکەن بە ڕای ئێوە چۆن دەتوانن هەردوو لەم کۆنفلێکت بەربەرەکانی هەردوو وڵاتەکە خۆیان ڕزگار کەن دوور خەنەوە.
I've always said to all the political and military leaders in Iraq that we understand Iraq wants to stay out of the regional conflicts. Iraq has plenty enough challenges and all the progress that can be made could be reversed if Iraq gets dragged into a regional conflict. I think the only way for Iraq to manage this is to make clear the Iraqi interest, which is the territory of Iraq should not be used to threaten any countries in the region and shouldn't be used by other countries to threaten other countries. And that any country who doesn't respect this policy and this interest is not respecting the sovereignty and independence of Iraq. And I think that's the best way of managing this risk. Now, we're supporting Iraq in this, and we have diplomatic relations with all the big players in this. We're trying our best as we talk to the Iranians as well as the Americans and others. We're trying our best to diffuse the situation. I think at the moment you can see that everybody has sent a signal about their interests and who they can damage if a conflict arises, but I don't think anybody actually wants a major conflict. And so this is a manageable situation, but the risk is something unintentional that happens by mistake, and that is a diplomatic duty for all of us who are not involved in this conflict to make sure there are no misunderstandings and that mistakes aren't made. Now, I think we have a good chance of doing that, but of course we want to get dialogue underway, and ultimately, as the American president has made clear, he wants to do a new deal with Iran. And so ultimately that's where we have to head. But I think we've got, first of all, to get some dialogue underway.
باش بۆ تۆ تیمەکەت و ئەو گاردانشی لەگەڵتن چەند عێراق و کوردستانی سەلامەتە بۆ ئەوەی بگەڕێن؟
So we consider Kurdistan region to be one of the more secure areas of Iraq. Obviously the threat of Daesh in the past, but also they are there in Kirkuk and Mahmur and places, is not zero. But we congratulate the Kurdish security authorities on achieving a very good level of security. Certainly I feel that operating in Kurdistan is easier than it is in much of the rest of Iraq. And when I talk to British business, I say, yes, our travel advice says that Kurdistan region is amber, so not green, which means you have to be careful, but we do not say don't visit Kurdistan region. There are other areas, of course, the liberated areas where Daesh were and are that are more risky, and we do not advise any travel to those areas. But we know that in order to secure these areas, we need to continue the campaign against Daesh because they're in the disputed boundaries. They're on the edge of the Kurdistan region. So in the year ahead, we want to make sure that instead of Daesh growing back, which has happened in the last 6 months,
تازگی شاندی ئێوە چوو بووە سووریا دەمەوێت بزانم مەبەستان چییە لە ناردنی ئەو شاندە چی ئەکەن لە سووریا بە تایبەتی لە بەشی ڕۆژە ئاوای کوردستان.
Well, there are two things that are on our minds about northeast Syria at the moment. One is making sure that conflict doesn't break out because this could result in refugee flows and it could result in negative effects on neighbouring countries including Iraq and the Kurdistan region. Secondly, as we know, there are a lot of detainees there, some of which have connections to the UK. These are Daesh fighters or Daesh families, and we have to try and manage those cases in a way that doesn't contribute to an increased threat to us primarily, but to any of our allies in the region. So for both of these reasons, some of our Foreign Office officials were recently visiting. We're very conscious of the fact that the Kurdistan region could suffer negative consequences if conflict were to break out. And we're doing what we can at the moment to make sure that the Kurds in Syria are part of a Syrian political process. We don't see any upsides in continuing in the situation we're in now where there is no political process in Syria. But there are lots of countries that will need to cooperate in order to make that happen. Meanwhile, we have a certain amount of stability and we have these detainees that we have to deal with. Iraq itself, of course, has huge numbers as well. Our numbers are relatively small. But as we know, Daesh elements can spread throughout the region.
ئەوانەی ئێوە ژمارەیان چەندە لەوێن ئەو شەکدارانەی پێشووی داعش کە ئێستا گیراوە؟
Yes. So the relatively small numbers, nowhere near 3 figures, so in 2 figures. But for Iraq, of course, it's tens of thousands. For other countries, North Africa countries, former Soviet Union countries.
ئەو چەند کەسەی خۆتان چۆن بڕیار لە چارەنووسیان دەکەن دەیان بنەوە بەریتانیا؟
So our policy is not to bring them back to the UK. And we're talking to the Iraqi authorities about whether we could deal with this caseload in the region in Iraq. There are issues around the death penalty which make this complicated, and we can only do something with Iraq, of course, if Iraqi laws and Iraqi interests are respected. So that is being discussed at the moment. But in general, what we're worried about is the spread of these people across the region and to other countries, because many of them still believe in the ideology and still pose a security threat. We all have a common interest in this, and the numbers are largest very often for countries in North Africa and elsewhere.
باشە وڵاتانی گەورە هەر دەڵێن ئەمانە خەتەرن وروەریان ناگرینەوە بەڵام وجودیان لە ڕۆژاوای کوردستان لە شوێنێکی گەورە مەترسیەکی گەورەیە و ئومێدیش بەو داعشانە دەدا کە ئێستا بەنهێنی خۆیان ماداوە ئەمە چەکدارە گەورەیان لەوێ ماون چۆن بڕیارێک دەدەن تەواو بن بە هەر جۆرێکەیە؟
Well, we owe it to everybody in the region, let alone the countries where these people come from, to make sure that they are dealt with according to due process and in a way that doesn't lead to any risk that they will escape and will return to the battlefield. So we're in discussion now with many Western countries, with many countries in the region, specifically with Iraq, on how best to deal with the situation. I have to be absolutely honest, there are no easy solutions. We're very grateful for the fact that the authorities in northeast Syria are holding these people and have started, in some cases, trials. But the most important thing is that we recognize that these people remain a security risk because they still have the ideology and are still ready to fight. So we have a common interest and we must work together to do the best we can to keep the risks down.
باشە ڕۆڵی بریتانیا چییە لە ڕێکخستن یا نزیکردنەوەی حزبەکانی ڕۆژاوای کوردستان کە ئێستا هەندێک دوورن لە یەکەوە؟
Well, in general, I and my colleagues and ministers back in the UK, we want to see Kurdistan region united. We want to see reform that builds the institutions, politically, security institutions, in a way that allows Kurdish citizens to be protected and that allows the economy to thrive. So in everything we do, we try to create the right atmosphere for bringing people together. Now we know the problems at the moment. The government has formed, but there are still questions around Peshmerga reform and how to make a unified force. As I said, we recognize this is a very big political task and it will require leadership and courage on all sides. I've been in Erbil discussing these issues in the last 2 days, and I will travel now to Suleymaniye where we will discuss the same issues. But in all cases, the history of the region shows that division is exploited by others, that what the people of the region want is for the political parties to work together in the interests of Kurdistan region. And similarly in the negotiations between Baghdad and Erbil, we're encouraging flexibility on both sides. I think the atmosphere actually is more positive than it's been for a long, long time. Obviously there are tough issues to be negotiated and it's for the sides to sit around the table and work out.
مەبەستی من ئەوە بوو ڕۆڵی بریتانیا چییە لە نزیکخستنەوەی لایەنە کوردستانیەکان لە ڕۆژاوای کوردستان کە ڕێک ناکەون.
So the recent visit by the British delegation was not focused on political relations between the different Kurdish factions. It was focused on detainees, Daesh detainees, on making sure that conflict doesn't break out that can spread and affect the neighbouring countries.
چاوەڕێکی دەکەن لە دۆخی کەرکووک مادەم ئێوە دەڵێن نزیکێکی باشترێ سەر نێوان هەولێر و بەغدا هەیە. کەرکووک یەکێکە لەو خاڵە قورسانەی کە چارەسەری زۆر بۆ هەردوو لا زەحمەتە.
Well, you're right. It's often said that Kirkuk is the most complex problem in the whole of Iraq. But if we're going to stabilize Iraq, then there has to be a negotiated compromise on Kirkuk. Now, everybody, I think, understands that it will involve some form of joint administration. But as we all know, and I have friends, as I'm sure you have, from Kirkuk, the Kirkukis themselves have a Kirkuki identity, and we need to make that the framework for the negotiations, because if we split into different communities, everybody gets entrenched and we can never come to a solution. So the UN is working on this at the moment. We're supporting the UN, all sides are in discussion, and it's time we return to this fundamental issue from over 10 years ago now. I think the security situation and the general economic improvements in the country allow us now to get back to these difficult issues, but they're the ones that we have to solve if Iraq is to be fully stabilized. The UK is working with other countries to make sure, obviously, that, as I said, Daesh is contained, but also we're ready to support the communities in these areas, either in building social cohesion, bringing different communities together, but also in terms of getting the economy going so that people feel a positive difference in those areas. We want all Iraqis to feel that there is more hope now than there has been for many years. But that means the governments in Baghdad and Erbil and the local governments in Kirkuk and other areas, they need to be able to deliver something now in the next couple of months. So we'll do everything we can to make that happen.